I've been watching this case for about 6 months, so I'm super eager to get started. Let's do the disclaimers and jump straight in. You know the disclaimers by now. This is a true crime story. It involves real people, and then real people have real families. So although I do want you to share it and I do want you to comment, please be a little bit sensitive as you do so. Shaye Groves of Botley Drive, Haven, Hampshire, England, also goes by the name of Shaye Corrigan. She's a 27-year-old mum of 1, and she describes herself as a pagan and a goth. She claims to suffer from bipolar disorder and complex PTSD. That's due to suffering a troubled childhood, and that results in her self-harming. In her words, "I am not a colourful person. I prefer wearing dark clothes and makeup, and listening to heavy metal rock music." And about her sense of humour, she said, "It's very dark and twisted, and to society it would seem very unpleasant. I joke about things that are not appropriate." You see, Shaye's bedroom was decorated in artistic drawings of serial killers. These serial killers include Peter Sutcliffe, Myra Hindley, and Rose West. For decorative purposes, she had 4 knives hung in her bedroom, and these had depictions of Chucky, Jigsaw, and Pennywise. She also had a coffin-shaped bookcase with a collection of books about gangsters. As well as her 4 decorative knives, she also had a Celtic dagger. Now, it's said that she kept this dagger under her bed, but as you'll see as the story goes on, this dagger does kind of move about a bit. It's not always just under her bed. Now, hold up just a second. Let's not get dragged into judging her for who she is and what she likes. I've got lots of goth friends and none of them are serial killers, or killers at all. We're all true crimers, and we're not killers. At least I hope you're not. All I'm saying is, the way that her bedroom's decorated and the things that she's into doesn't make her a killer, and it certainly doesn't mean she's weird. You could say that she overly celebrates serial killers, but I mean, that is a thin line. We're all fanatics because we sit watching these true crime documentaries all day every day. And merch is available to buy all over the internet. You can buy t-shirts, you can buy mugs, all with serial killers on. I mean, she bought hers off Etsy, but just because you buy this stuff doesn't mean that you're a budding serial killer. No more than a film fanatic that's buying horror film merchandise. Finally, the dagger under the bed. There is plenty of people in this country and around the world that sleep with a knife or a baseball bat or even a gun near the bed just so they feel safe. Honestly, I would probably keep one eye open if I was sleeping in Shaye's bed, but my point is, just because someone's a goth or into true crime doesn't mean we should be prejudiced. So on to her boyfriend, Frankie Fitzgerald, and honestly I couldn't find all that much about him or his relationship with Shaye. It's one of these weird things that he don't get talked about. There's not much published about it, and trust me, because of the type of story this is, because of the type of person that Shaye is, there are tons of news articles to sift through, which kind of hides all the other bits of information that you're trying to Google and search for. I do know that Frankie Fitzgerald was the youngest of 5 children. He is the father of 2 children, and he'd been in an off and on again relationship with Shaye. Now, I read that the relationship started in January 2022 or February 2022, but I'm not quite sure if that means that's when they started being on and off again, or they'd been in a relationship continuously since then. Either which way, on the morning of Sunday the 17th of July 2020, Shaye called a friend on FaceTime. This friend is called Vicky, and if I were you, I'd get used to hearing her name because she appears lots of times in this case. Apparently, although it was fairly early on a Sunday morning, everything about this call was pretty normal. Well, up until Shaye told her that she'd killed Frankie. And at first, Vicky didn't believe her, but Shaye proceeded to show Vicky Frankie's body. Throughout the call, she apparently showed Frankie's body 3 times. And as she was doing this, at times Shaye were even giggling away to herself. Vicky saw that Frankie had quite a big gash across his neck. And at this point, Vicky's absolutely horrified. And she is still massively in doubt, thinking that it's a big joke and she's wanting it to be a big prank. And even though she's into true crime, she's now sat talking to one of her best friends who's showing her a dead body, saying, "Look, I've just killed him." Vicky asked what happened, and in her words, this is what she said. They weren't getting on very well and had an argument to do with her ex, and went to bed to sleep. In the morning, she said that she was on his phone and she was going through his messages and came across a chat with a 13-year-old girl. Shaye said, "I lost it. I just lost it," and stabbed him in the neck when he was sleeping. Shaye said he woke up and started fighting back, and that's when the dagger went around the side of his neck. She said there was blood everywhere. At this point, I was thinking, oh my god, this is real. Frankie collapsed at the bottom of the bed in a pool of blood. So we think. This is actually a bit of detail that keeps changing as well, so keep your eye on that. An extra bit of information is apparently Shaye and Frankie had both had alcohol and cocaine in the system from the night before. Shaye was trying to justify herself to Vicky on this call, and she's saying, look, it's alright, Frankie was suicidal anyway, and it's alright, we're just going to assume that he's going to have to commit suicide. Vicky asked, well, what are you going to do with the body? And Shaye replied, it's alright, we're going to bury it in the back garden. Also, during the call, Shaye was cleaning the bookcase. It had blood spots on it. And as she did so, she even showed Vicky one of the books that had got blood splatters. At some point, Vicky heard Lauren White, who is Shaye's housemate, say, I'm going to crack. At which point, Shaye responded to her saying, you can't crack. You're an accomplice. You put the bin bags under his body. At the end of Shaye and Vicky's call, Shaye's last words to Vicky were, we're still friends, aren't we? Straight after the video call ended, without a second thought, Vicky phoned the police. As she cried down the phone, she told the operator, we were on a video call, and while we were on the video call, she showed me his body. I watch crime things, but this was real. I'm really begging this is a prank and not real, but it sure looks real. The gash looks massive on his throat.
Hello. You alright? Yeah. What's going on?
Sorry, the dog's...
No. Don't close the door. What's going on? What's going on?
With what?
Are you Shaye?
I am Shaye.
Right. We had some kind of strange, interesting call about somebody having had their throat slit.
Okay.
So what's going on here?
No, that's,
dog,
that's
is it?
my dog's, yeah.
Hello. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. The necessity for your arrest is for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay.
When the police arrived at Shaye's house, they noted an incredibly strong smell of bleach in Shaye's bedroom. She told them that the murder weapon was in the bathroom sink and claimed, I was going to call you myself, but I needed to get my head right. She also claimed, he tried to attack me. It's not the first time. I've got video footage of him raping me and beating me. The pathologist report showed that Frankie Fitzgerald was stabbed 22 times. Of those, 17 were to the front of his chest. 2 was to other areas of the chest, and 3 times were to the neck. These wounds injured his lungs and heart. One of them even severed his left internal jugular vein. So, as you can expect, this isn't going to be an open-close case. Shaye, for the lack of a better word, because there's many things I'd like to call her at this point, ain't going to go down without a fight. She's going to be kicking and screaming. So, there's 2 charges here. Shaye was charged with murder, and Lauren White, the housemate, she's also a mom of 1, and she was charged with failing to comply with police to disclose a PIN code for a mobile phone during a police investigation. They were remanded in Plymouth Magistrates Court on the 20th of July 2022, and neither of them made a plea. The next day, the 21st of July, they both appeared at Windsor Crown Court. Now, at this point, I'm not fully sure what's happened to Lauren White. Vicky said that she knows that Lauren put some of the bags under Frankie's body, so therefore she's an accomplice. She's also denied to give a phone over, so there's got to be something. I'm going to keep looking, but up to now, I haven't found anything. As for Shaye, court started on Friday the 13th of January 2023. Quite apt. She went through a 5-week trial denying murder and claiming self-defence. The court were told how Shaye and Frankie were into rough sex, all 4 elements of the BDSM, and that even included knife play. They also heard that Shaye had set up CCTV footage in a bedroom to act as some sort of sex cam. It was said that days before the killing, they'd had a bust-up because Frankie had accidentally called Shaye by the name of his ex-girlfriend. The prosecution claimed that after that had happened, Shaye told Vicky, I want to pick up a dagger and just put it straight into his neck. Some of the CCTV footage, presumably from a bedroom, was shown to the court. This footage showed that Shaye was conspiring to hurt Frankie. She was trying to get him attacked in a dark alleyway. She planned to cover this up by getting one of the guys that did the beat up to kick her as well. That way Frankie wouldn't suspect that she were involved. Now, remember the entire time that the police have been involved, Shaye's been saying that Frankie had raped her and he'd been violent with her and that she got video proof. Now, I'm not sure if this relates to 2 clips or 1, but the jury was shown a clip where she claimed that Frankie had anally raped her. Towards the end of the footage, you can hear Frankie saying, "That was a little bit rapey, wasn't it?" And then to the court, Shaye says, "I believe he knew exactly what he had just done. He had anally raped me. He didn't think about my feelings at all. It was very painful. I blamed myself at the time because I didn't actually say no. It was something that I just ignored and we put behind us." Now, honestly, I read that and kind of go, it sounds like she's listened to what other rape victims have said and she's trying to mimic that. I'm not a denier, but let's move on to the next thing I've got to say. Again, I don't know if this is the same clip or a different clip, but Shaye had sent Vicky a short clip. And this is the short clip that she was on about to the police about being raped, where Frankie were overly violent with her. But the police actually found the full clip from the CCTV, and before they started, they actually set a safe word. Yes, it was entirely consensual. She never said the safe word. It was all agreed upon, and if at any point she didn't want something, all she had to do was say that safe word, and by rights he should stop. And obviously if he doesn't stop at that point, then it is rape. But she never says this safe word. But Vicky also testified that this wasn't the first time that Shaye had used the sex cams against people. She'd used them to blackmail previous boyfriends. Her actual words were, she compiles evidence against everyone to see how she can use it against them as leverage. The prosecution also put forward that while Frankie was laid dead in Shaye's bedroom, she was downstairs having a normal conversation with another man. She even invited him over to spend time with her. And to go back to Vicky, she told the police that she'd received a message from Shaye at 5 o'clock on the morning that she killed Frankie. These texts basically played out that Shaye and Frankie had an argument, or had a fight, as she put it, and stormed out. Frankie had stormed out. Vicky went on to explain that Shaye was obviously using these text messages as some sort of alibi. And Shaye later admitted that that's why she sent the messages, to cover my back. Vicky confirmed to the court, Shaye told me he was abusive to her, but it was only ever in a sexual manner. Shaye got a thrill out of violence. She was madly in love with him. Halfway through the court, on the 20th of February 2023, Shaye had her opportunity to tell the court exactly what happened. She said that night, the night before the murder, they were having an argument because Frankie were thinking that Shaye were rekindling an old romance with an ex. So they exchanged phones and looked for each other's messages. Now, hold up again, this is not okay. I'm not judging your relationship or anyone's relationship, but that is not an healthy relationship to be in. Relationships need trust. It doesn't matter if they're looking through your phone, you're looking through their phone, or you're both looking through each other's phones. That shouldn't happen. Put an end to it or leave is my advice. Each to your own, but just know that's not okay. Relationships need trust, and it's borderline abusive and controlling. It's a solid red flag. A bit of information I didn't see come up very often was Shaye apparently admitted to the court that she did sleep with her ex-boyfriend on the 15th of June. So this is just 1 month, maybe 5 weeks before Frankie had been murdered. She explained, "I felt safe. He was the one partner who did not mistreat me. I still had a lot of love for Frankie. That never left." Anyway, she claimed while she was looking through Frankie's phone that she found a message on Facebook from a 13-year-old girl. She said, "It tipped me over the edge. At that point, I called him some really horrible names, including pedo and nonce." She said Frankie then became really angry and his demeanour changed. "You could see it in his eyes. He grabbed me by the throat and forcefully pushed my head towards the headboard. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. My eyes were blurry. I realised he wasn't going to let go, and I feared for my life. I reached out to grab an object off the bookcase, and I hit him in the throat. I have a money box there, and I thought if I hit him with that, it would get him off. He rolled off, and he stood up, and slid down the wall really slowly. There was bubbling coming from his neck when he stopped moving. I was in shock. His chest wasn't moving. It was just the noise. When that happened, I realised I had killed him. I tried to stop the bubbling. I put my hand there, but it didn't do anything. So I stabbed him in the heart. So let's just look at that real quick. She says they're looking through each other's phone. She found this message off a 13-year-old and goes, oh my God, wow. He kicks off, starts strangling her. She reaches for a money box to hit him with, or anything to hit him with, grabs a dagger, not realising it's a dagger, and stabs him in the throat. Now, what's interesting about this is the prosecution went with a stance of saying that the motive was jealousy. She was jealous because he was messaging somebody else. Not one mention of the fact that the person he was supposedly messaging was 13. And I just find that really weird. For everything I've looked through, and I've looked through like 60 different sources, not one thing mentions that again. There's like one line where it mentions it, then not again. So I don't know if this message has been shown to the court. I don't know if it's been disproven in court. I don't get it. Anyway, she then used bleach to clean the wall and floor of blood splatters and put the dagger into the sink in the bathroom. She also confessed to washing off blood, but stopped cleaning up before it was finished. I realised what I was doing. I didn't touch him or the knife, and I left it all as it was. She told the court that she'd panicked, so she phoned her daughter's dad, and he said, look, calm down, cover his body in plastic and clean the walls. So that's what Shaye and Lauren White then did. They used bin bags and shopping bags beneath his body and placed a pillow over his face. She then continued to tell the court that midway through this cleanup operation, she stopped and decided that, look, that's it, I need to end my life. I didn't know what to do or how to deal with what had gone on. I made a choice that when the police had got involved, I would go and top myself. I didn't want my daughter to have to deal with me going to prison. She admitted to the court that she did lie to Vicky on several occasions, for example, saying that Frankie was asleep when he wasn't. She said, I didn't want anyone to be right about him, to say I told you so. The man is dead. I didn't want to tarnish his reputation. Now let me just clarify on the bit where it says, I didn't want anyone to be right about him. I also read another quote where she was basically saying that, look, I didn't want anybody to say, look, I told you so. I knew you should have left him because he's violent. That's what she means by that bit. She claims that before she had a chance to say goodbye to her daughter and then take her own life, Vicky had already called the police. They arrived and arrested her. She said that she used to joke about Frankie being violent with her in bed, but then it became a reality. The defence got some texts from Frankie and showed them to the court. These texts basically were threats of what he would do to Shaye if he ever caught her cheating. He spoke of paralysing her, and he said he would hang her and he would snap her in half. And a good old line, you're mine and mine only. Now, I don't understand. This is the really hard thing to do these videos and to be in this community of we weren't there. So we don't know if them texts are out of context or anything else. Especially with a close friend witness saying that Shaye used to compile evidence. However, she's claiming he was violent towards her, and then messages are a bit extreme. When asked about the conversations with her friends about hurting Frankie, she said, I wanted him to see how badly he was treating me. This is probably a bad phrase to use in this court, but I wanted to stab him in the back. A text from Shaye to a friend was also read to court. That said, if he comes for me, I won't stop myself. I will grab whatever I can. My dagger is in the bedside drawer right next to me. So as you may expect, she was also asked to justify the way that a bedroom's designed and laid out. And about the pictures, she said, they're not photos, they are art. I thought they looked pretty cool and it's different. I'm also a massive Disney fan, but I wanted my bedroom to be completely different and to shock people. The knives were on my wall for decorative purposes. When asked about the coffin-shaped bookshelf, it was my humour. If I die in my bed, roll me over and put me in a coffin. That's what I used to say. She was also asked why she slept with a Celtic knife under a pillow. Celtic is big in paganism, so I thought it would go nice with my rituals. I kept it under my pillow. One, because it's a good thing to do, because it brings spiritual connection together, and two, for protection. I felt safer having it easily accessible, especially as the months with Frankie went on. There was one occasion where he asked if I was going to stab him with a knife, but it was in a playful tone. That the Celtic dagger wasn't under the pillow on that night. It was on the coffin bookshelf, and she explained that the reason it was there is both Shaye and Frankie was trying to catch mice in her room. She told the court that Frankie had actually developed a cocaine habit and it would get really aggressive when he were high. Now, I could sit and read the entire cross-examination to you, but we all know how that goes. The prosecution picks a bit of evidence, they put some sort of fabrication behind it, they defend it. It's back and forth in yes and no, in yes, no, in. But there is two bits that really did catch my attention. One is the prosecution asked, "Are you someone who might do someone harm?" And she responded, "No, I am a self-harmer. I harm myself before I hurt others." The other question was, have you learned the tricks of the trade from these gangster books that you've got? And to that, she replied, "I know no alibi is airtight. If you're going to kill someone, the only logical way is to inject air into them." So last week, on Friday the 17th of February 2023, after a 5-week trial, Shaye was in court wearing a denim jacket with a large pentagram on the back. The tattoos on her face were visible, and she was found guilty by unanimous verdict of murder. As she was taken down to the cells, she did smile. Now, as I said, the sentencing is today. It's happening right as I'm doing it, but I were hoping it'd be a bit sooner, so there's plans to get this video out on Sunday. So I'm going to insert here the sentencing, and then we can move on to the rest of the script that I've wrote. That is really annoying. As soon as I finished recording, they published it, like literally within a minute. The minimum term of Shaye's life sentence is 23 years in prison. Back onto track, Frankie's family made a statement, and that read, "As a parent, you never expect to outlive your children. You will do anything in your power to protect them. Frankie was our baby, the youngest of 5 children. He can never be replaced. He was a kind and beautiful person, and sadly leaves 2 children behind that will never get to know their daddy. We thank the jury for their verdict today, and to Frankie, we love and miss you more than anything in this world. Your shining light will always be in our hearts." Now, that's all I've got for you. The thing that sat really hard that I'm still looking for information for is the messages from the 13-year-old girl on Facebook. Now, I can't find absolutely anything about it, which is weird, because you'd think the prosecution would bring it as evidence. I haven't heard of that evidence being put. I haven't heard anything of any sort other than the accusation of that's what happened. And even then, there's 2 claims. There's one that he was asleep while she was looking, and the other was they mutually swapped phones. Other than that, I think I'm quite happy with all the information that I brought. So, a big question that this has put out to me. Do you think being a true crimer brings prejudice? Do you think circumstantial evidence comes with a lot more oomph if you're someone like Shaye Groves? I'm not here claiming that Shaye's innocent. By no means. She's quite obviously guilty. But it seems to be, especially in the media, they go, look at her. And they do the same thing they do to Marilyn Manson and people like that. She's a goth. She's a pagan. She loves serial killers. She's used gangster books to learn how to get away with it, and this is what she's doing. What I'm trying to say is, if there were 3 people in a room, one of them was a serial killer obsessed true crimer, and the others weren't, there were no evidence to say who'd killed the 4th person, do you think the true crimer would instantly be a suspect? Let me know what you think down below. Until next week, guys, keep safe. Also, I've decided you guys have won. I weren't going to sell any merch whatsoever, but you've been asking and pestering about this hoodie, so I've decided I'm going to sell it. It's going to be in about 2 weeks. I think they'll be about £35 plus postage. But they'll go on sale in about 2 weeks, but they're going to be limited edition. So they're going to be on sale for 2 weeks, and that's it. After that 2 weeks, they will never be sold again. So keep your eyes out on the community tab. See you later.